Hello aspirants, looking at the current affairs for 13th of October 2018, the Hindu analysis. So these are the important news items to what has been picked up from the Hindu newspaper. Let's look at them in the detail. The first news item, AI plane flies 4 hours with ruptured belly. So we have the Dubai bound Air India Express, which is actually carrying 136 people on the board and actually damaged on the border wall of Tiruchi. So this particular, the time of takeoffing, it had actually damaged, and after that it had safely reached down to Mumbai. So this the news is all about. So here the two pilots who have been onto the flight, and based on their negligence is what the situation or the condition which has been happened right now. So taking this into consideration, they have suspended the two people and also the investigation has been pending on the two pilots. So here the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau AAIB and Director General of Civil Aviation are been inquiring into the matter, and there was a separate subcommittee of the board as well which was being constituted right now, and this would be headed by the independent director who is looking out for all the safety related issues within the organization including the subsidiary parts. So here what becomes important is your AAIB. So anytime the UPSC might ask the questions however it wants it in a twisted form. So just try to know like what are the investigations bureau, what it has been doing, what are the main functions. That would be more than sufficient. So that's all about it. And the second one, the panel to study the issues raised by Me Too India. So there is a hashtag of Me Too which has been happening in India right now, but actually the origination is back in 2006. So here this particular hashtag is all about where the women's have been talking about to the sexual harassment which has been happening to them towards the workplace and the areas to what they have been. So each and every woman is sharing their grief onto the Me Too movement, and it's getting turned into a very big movement right now. So you're taking this into consideration. Now the government would be setting up a committee of the judges and lawyers as well to examine the existing legal as well as the institutional framework where they have to deal with the complaints of the sexual harassment at workplace. So this is one of the ministry, that is the Women and Child Development, which has been announcing right now, and the minister's chief head is Maneka Gandhi. So that's all about it. As more and more stories of what is being called as in sexual harassment is getting increased on, and the cases of the sexual harassment have been actually, it should be dealt with a policy of zero tolerance. The more they deal with the zero tolerance is what the main focus is right now, and here they're saying that this is one of the important area to where they have to strengthen the existing framework. And the problem or the question for now was that here these people, in sense the women who have been facing the sexual harassment, they have no such proofs because it was used to be a verbal assault, or they used to touch or pinch them on the clothes and the other areas as well. So this is one of the assault what they have been facing on. So they don't get any kind of an cases, or they don't have any proof to prove that this is how the sexual harassment has happened. So this is, they're saying that this is almost from the last 25 years which has been registered, and much more earlier as well. But here taking as a first step towards to what has been happening, a voice against the sexual harassment, here they're talking about first let's name and shame monsters. So naming and shaming will go a long way, and after that they would know to what is, the people might start getting lessened with the pain to what had happened to them. The sharing platform is there, but that sharing platform to what has to be taken as a concern can be taken at the concern. So this is all about it. So right now the committee of the judges and the lawyers have been taking into consideration the examining for institutional framework. So here the video would be played right now, so you'll get an understanding to who started the Me Too movement, when it started, and what purpose. So these, and you'll also find some basic informations and the data as well. You can just make use of that.
Founder of the Me Too movement. Me Too is a movement that was founded in 2006 to support survivors of sexual violence, in particular Black and brown girls who were in the program that we were running. It has grown since then to include supporting grown people, women, and men and other survivors, as well as helping people to understand what community action looks like in the fight to end sexual violence. I was working and living in Alabama at the time, and we see these ideas. Me Too is essentially about survivors supporting survivors, and it's really about community healing and community action. Although we can't define what healing looks like for people, we can set the stage and give people the resources to have access to healing.
Oh my God, that's really sad.
Yeah, I believe that. I'm surprised it's not more.
I think it will have a positive impact. Are you optimistic about?
Oh yes, it's going to have an impact. It already has, I feel. I don't think it's going to go away because women are free and they now know that other women are experiencing the same. I don't know anyone.
Have you ever felt sexually harassed at work?
Me Too movement. Me Too movement. In the Me Too movement. It's a non-verbal cue.
They are just
The next news item, inflation up, industrial output slows. So here we have the different sectors which is being discussed here, and they're saying that there are certain areas to where the inflation, the output of the industrial has been actually slowed down. So here if you see the consumer price inflation, which has actually been accelerated from 3.69 to 3.77. This is showing a comparison in the month of August and September. So here this is with respect to the inflation of the food and beverages, which has actually quickened to be as 1.08 from 0.78%. But if you see here, the clothing and the footwear has actually slowed with respect to 4.64% from 4.88%, and this is also the housing segment which is also slowed down in the written. But the tobacco, pan and the intoxicant sector, which is actually accelerated from 5.4% to 5.57%, which means a slight inflation effect which has been seen there. And here the industrial production has slowed down as most of the 10-month low with 4.3% in the month of August. So here this is because of the drastic deceleration in manufacturing, mining, consumer durable sectors. So because of these particular sectors which has been decelerated, the entire effect is what is being put on to the industrial production. So this is the same news item we would be discussing more in detail in the economic session. That's all about the page 1. And the next one, Supreme Court refuses to stay the grant to puja panels. So here we have the Supreme Court has refused to stay the Calcutta High Court's order allowing the Mamata Banerjee's government grant 28 crores to 28,000 puja committees across the West Bengal. As most of us know that Durga Puja has been very famous in West Bengal. So you are taking this into consideration, the Mamata Banerjee government actually wanted to grant 28 crores to the 28,000 puja committee. So this is which has been across the country of the West Bengal. So taking this into considerations, the High Court of Calcutta has failed to appreciate to what the move has been taken by the government, and they're saying that this is a tax which has been collected from the people, and this cannot be used for upliftment of one particular religious purpose, or it cannot be used for any sort of a religious purpose. You cannot divert this fund and either for in name of a repair, reconstruction, or in terms of constructing of any of the religious places. If at all they said to do that, which means that it would be affecting the spirit and the object of the Article 27. So it is part of the fundamental rights of Part 3 of the Constitution, which says that the freedom from paying the taxes for the promotion of any particular religion. So no person would be paying the taxes for any of one particular religion. So now to whatever the people have paid the taxes, you cannot divert for one particular religion's upliftment. Taking this into consideration, the Calcutta High Court has not allowed it or has not appreciated the government in return. So this plea has actually gone to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court appreciated to what the Calcutta High Court has done it, and it also refused to stay the Calcutta High Court, and even it did not allow Mamata Banerjee government to grant a 28 crores to 28,000 committee across the West Bengal. So here this was actually, this entire issue came to the light because of the petition which was being filed by the Calcutta High Court lawyer Mr. Saurav Datta. He was challenging that this particular grant was actually affecting the secularism and also encouraging the communal passion. If these two things has been done, which means that there is no point in calling India to be as a secular country. And moreover, this is something where it directly offends the Article 27, and he also said that there was no such public purpose where it has to organize a kind of a Durga Puja, or it is not needed in return doing so. So they were not encouraging to any of the grants to get diverted from the people to what they're paying as a tax to any of the religious purposes. So that's all about it, and get more an understanding with respect to your Article 27, which is directly offending in terms of the grant to what the West Bengal government has been receiving. That's about it. And next one, do you want a country of vegetarians as a Supreme Court bench? So here this is with respect to the petition which has been hearing by the Supreme Court bench, where it's saying to that they have to ban all the barbaric meat trade and also the leather industry. So this was one of the petition which has been heard by the Justice Madan B. Lokar. In written, he is asking that is this particular plea to what has been filed is that they wanted to make the country to be a full vegetarian. But if you see that this particular hearing of the bill, which was actually filed by the Healthy Wealthy Ethical World Guide India Trust, it's asking for a complete ban where they're not being allowed to export any type of the meat. Let's say it is a beef, fish, pork, poultry, or any related items. They don't want it to get exported either the government or by the private parties. because they're saying this particular meat exports and also the ancillary leather trade is something related to an antisocial and barbaric in nature, and this talks more about the foreign culture and foreign exchange in written, and this is one of the main intention to what the petitioner has been said, and it is also incurring a huge cost, and this is what is being said again. And here he was also expressing that the slaughterhouse and also the tannery are being indicted to be as an unsocial, obnoxious and also hazardous. So why he is saying is because of the rampant pollution to what is been coming from these particular industries, which is emanating and polluting the environment in return. And here there was also a kind of a statement where they are saying that the judge was being averging and dismissing the petition because he did not find the grounds to entertain the petition, but again there were few of the acceding people who wanted the lawyer to be given an opportunity so he can explain it in detail or argue them in detail to why is that they are doing it. So here it was one of the opposition. So here the trust had made it very clear that this particular opposition is not for the private domestic meat production, but here it is wanted to highlight that the rampant misuse of the antibiotic to also what we saw yesterday. So it's about the misuse of the antibiotics in the intensive animal agriculture and also the spread of the zoonotic diseases. So this is what the concern is, what is being coming from the trust, and they're saying that this is also very seriously which affects the public health in written. So if this is affecting the public health in written, which means that the problems might be associated more, and this also reduces the cattle wealth as well. The reduction of the cattle wealth also would be there, and also contaminated with the vital public resources of the water, and this is also degrading the environment in return. So this is a main concern to what the petitioner wants to put forth before the court. But here since a petition is now being heard by the Supreme Court bench, we would be getting the stories next to what is being followed out here. But right now this is the entire situation, and just understand to what is it all about, but there's nothing for you all to memorize in this particular session. That's about it. And the next one, Supreme Court must set example on backlog, says R.M. Lodha. So here we have the Chief Justice of India, the present Chief Justice Ranjan Gogoi. So he is a 46th Chief Justice of India, and he also succeeded the earlier Chief Justice of India, Mr. Deepak Mishra. So here the new sworn Chief Justice of India is advising the Chief Justice of the High Court and also the fellow judges that they should not take leave on the working days, and they have to remain in the courts during the working hours, so that they have to clear all the backlogs of what the cases has been pending. So in the counter suggestion is what has been coming from the predecessor, that the former Chief Justice of India, Mr. R.M. Lodha, is saying that if this has to be done, then first you have to set an example in this particular matter. So if the Supreme Court should set an example, and he also said that this was something where he mooted to be as a 365 days working calendar for the Supreme Court and a High Court judge. So he said that it's not only Chief Justice of India, but also the entire 24 judges has to be taken into consideration. You set an example, the other people would automatically follow to what it has to be done. So this is one important aspect. And he also said that in sense to Mr. Lodha, he also mentioned that the Supreme Court had no any administrative control over the High Courts. Because it's of the federal structure, the only thing to what it can do is advise them, or neither it cannot give any orders in this particular aspects. But he said that this particular backlog can be worked together in collective, collaborative and also consensual way. So here this has to be coming not only from the judges, but also from the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court judges and also the High Court Chief Justice. So all put together with a collaborative nature, then the backlog of the cases to what is being there can be controlled at the highest. And he also ensured that he would also were talking about Mr. Lodha and also his counterpart Mr. Kapadia. They had also discussed many things with framing of the vision document for the future CJIs. So here the main concern is that here the successive Chief Justice of India are for a short tenure, and here this is also impeding the implementations of the plans to what each and every time a new Chief Justice of India comes into the picture. Rather is saying that rather coming up with new plans, why not institutionalize it? So when you try to institutionalize it, which means that it comes broadly with a policy framework, then all other Chief Justice, the future Chief Justice of India, they would be able to follow the vision to what they have to follow. So this is something where a predecessor, that's a former Chief Justice of India, Mr. Lodha, trying to simplify the entire situation and trying to get the work done in a much more better aspect. So this was a counter suggestion to what is being received by the Chief Justice of present India, that is the Ranjan Gogoi. So this is again two eminent personalities from the field of the Supreme Court. They're trying to do a betterment for the nature in clearing as much as possible of the backlog of the cases. So this is about it. And next one, overall GDP norms MPs. So here we have the GDP, where it is talking about the gross domestic product which has been produced within the country, all the goods and services which has been produced for that particular year. That is how we calculate the GDP, but in which ways you have a video which explains much clearly to what is a GDP in nature. So here the main concern right now with this particular article is that the current manner in which the GDP is being measured, it's saying that it is not providing a complete information. It's giving an incomplete estimation of the economic activity, and this is one of the important report, or we call it as a draft report, which has been coming from the Estimates Committee of Parliament. So Estimate Committee of the Parliament is saying that to whatever you're calculating a GDP right now, it's an incomplete estimation of the economic activity, and it's not giving a full-fledged ideologies to what is being followed or what is being calculated into the GDP structures. So here is also been saying that the GDP and also the gross value added measures are being questioned by the opposition leaders as good as it is, and apart from that, to whatever the calculations have been happening with the present scenarios, they are not taking into measure, they are not adding certain important aspects like not measuring the depletion of the natural resources. So, and most of the several economists are also were feeling the same way, that most of the natural resources was not being added to the calculation of the GDP. And apart from that, they were also talking about it did not incorporate the economic contributions of the women in running the households, because most of the times to what we talk as in GDP content, we are not taking the calculation of the women who are running the house and also maintaining the accounts in return. So their services which has not been taken into consideration, whether its increase in GDP resulted in increase in happiness. So nothing of it which has been taken into consideration is another important aspects where they are trying to highlight under the estimate committee of the draft report. And they also said that there were several inadequacies which is being completely left out, or it is not been noticing properly, as we said, the depletion of the natural resources, or with respect to women contribution when it comes to the GDP in nature, or which has not been taken into consideration. And they are saying that whereas any rise in GDP growth requires an utilization of the natural resources, utilizations and depletions are not taken into account while measuring the GDP. So this is very important, this requires it, but again this has not been taken into the calculation of the GDP is a concern right now. And apart from that, they also said that the committee was noting that the Niti Aayog had acknowledged the efforts and it wanted to ensure that the GDP growth is combined with sustainability. But so far there is no such suggestions which has been coming from Niti Aayog on how to go about this, and there are no proper timeline and a framework which is explaining how to do the GDP growth with a combined nature of the sustainability. And the committee also made a very strong recommendation telling that it has to come up with the indicators or parameters which is gauging with respect to environmental resources, decay and also replenishment efforts which has made to compensate the loss and also capture these particular aspects in measuring the GDP as well as the economic parameters. So this is one of the strongest suggestion which has been coming from the Estimate Committee of Parliament. So this is about it. And here they are also, as we discussed, they are talking about the highlights that the current GDP measures, while not accounting for an increase in the production, did not take into account of the economic activity or change in the quality of the output due to the improvements in the technology or how advances is the AI, that's artificial intelligence, which had actually impact the employment in return. So another important factor not taken into consideration, as we discussed, is women in India as housewives is not been taken into consideration while keeping the households accounts, saving the money, attending the smallest of all the children to oldest of the house, and all these day-to-day activities and households to what is being taken care by a woman is not been taken into the calculation of the GDP, that's a gross domestic product. So these are the important aspects to what they're saying, that these things are not being taken into considerations. So this is how we need to come up with new indicators and parameters and also ensure that these items which are the informations which has been left out can be added in the near future. So this is all about the GDP. So now a video would be played on, just look on to it.
What is GDP, or gross domestic product, and why should you even care? GDP is all around us. It's cars, clothes, doctors, hairdressers even. It's all part of GDP. Let me explain. Some people produce goods like cars or clothes. Others produce services like doctors or hairdressers. So if you add up the value of goods and services, you get gross domestic product. Or you can add up incomes. If you add up the income of all the United States in 1 year, you you'd get US GDP. So, a higher GDP means everyone's doing great, right? Not always. You see, GDP doesn't measure, for example, how fairly things are being distributed. Some people may be getting all of this income, or how much the environment is being damaged. A lot of cars may mean a lot of pollution. In fact, GDP doesn't even include some very important services, like childcare. If a babysitter looks after your younger brother for the day, they get an income, they're providing a service. But if your mom does the same exact thing and looks after your younger brother, she doesn't get an income, so it's not included in GDP. So GDP is failing to measure a very important service. But GDP is a good overall indication of how much an economy produces every year. So that's GDP. It's all around us, and it's very good to know.
So moving on to the next news item. Mission to sequence genes of a large group of Indians. So here we have the India, which has been actually planning for a major mission to sequence the genes of a large group of Indians. So this would be akin with the projects like UK, China, Japan and Australia, which has been doing good in these aspects. And here the main ideology to why they want to sequence the gene is to use this and improve the health of the populations. So this can sequence of the genes can be used for the improvement of the health of the particular people of that particular nation. And here the key decisions has been actually taken from the Prime Minister's Science, Technology and Innovation Advisory Council. So this was the first meeting which has been held on. So based on this, the key decision has been taken for a major mission of the sequence of the genes. And you have two important ministries and the department, that is the Health and Family Welfare Ministry and the Biotechnology Department, which are being associated with a project called Major Mission for Sequencing of the Genes. So these are the two important eminent peers, set of personalities and the institutions which is coming together to associate with the project. So this is all about it. And here, by doing this, India would be coming into one of the 6 countries who would be achieving the feat. So this is the one which has been more on keen of the CSIR, that is the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, which started in the year 2009, and it wants to sequence the genome of the Indian. So by this it will be able to achieve it, and they are also analyzing much of the Indians and also the disease to what they are getting susceptible. So if they get to know to what is the problem with the crowd, then they will be able to control it and also treat at the same time. And you should also know that this particular group of Indian scientists and also the companies are involved with 100K, that is actually 1 lakh Genome Asia project, which is being held or led by NTU, that is the National Technological Universities of Singapore, which is sequencing the whole genomes of 1 lakh Asians, and which would be including of 50,000 Indians. So this is how the break actually happens with respect to sequence of the genomes. There's one important aspects, and here by sequencing these genomes and also linking to the human health and also the diseases to research initiative, and by doing this a much larger scale, they would be able to understand to how a direct impact on the public health and how can we help the public in return. How can this be used in a wider aspect by understanding the sequence of genomes. And here they're saying that if the first level of the project, if it starts on, then other things would start fall in place, and back to back the technology or the way how they have to develop and solve the problem associated with the diseases of the humans can be set for in a larger extent. And here the CSIR, that's a Council of the Scientific and Research Institution, is acting as a coordinator between several ministries, and it is also looking out for the works on the projects and the missions which has been scheduled to meet once in a month. So here it will be the projects and the missions to what is being taken care, it will be meeting once in a month, and it is a one which plays a coordinator role for all the set of the people, that is the CSIR. So they would be taking up with responsibility, and apart from that there would also be a key programs to what would be discussed on, that is a key deep ocean mission to facilitate the ocean science and also the technologies to help with India's strategic interest, and also an artificial intelligence and quantum computing mission will also be discussed on. So with the first meeting, the other things also will be accompanied with it. So it's all about looking for the betterment of the people with the proper health solutions, and also inducing that people might not get more susceptible to the diseases to what has been coming across, like getting a waves of threats to the people in return. By doing the sequence of genes, they would be able to understand much better. But now you have just small video to understand to what is genome sequencing. Just look on to it. So moving on to the next news item, PM to pay working visit to Japan. So here we have the Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be visiting Japan to attend the annual bilateral summit with the Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, which is going to happen in the month of October to 28th and 29th. So this is upcoming annual bilateral summit. So here you have certain things to what they would be discussing. So this visit would actually be billed to be called as a working visit because both the sides they would be discussing several agreements which would be enhancing the defense and also the trade cooperation, and also they will be talking on to the Indo-Pacific regions to how to hold the talks on these particular aspects as well. And here they will also be affirming with respect to traditional bonds of the friendship between the two countries and also strengthen their multifaceted cooperations. So they wanted to also have a good bonding in terms of friendship and also want to strengthen for the betterment and for the better future and for a cooperation as well. And the advance of the vision of India and Japan is working together to promote the peace as well as the prosperity of the Indo-Pacific region and behind it. And they're also talking about synergizing the India's Act East policy. This is one of the important and free and open Indo-Pacific strategy. So here the advanced vision of India is that it wants to have a more of synergizing talks when it comes to the Act East policy, which has been looking on to be a bigger aspects right now, and also free and open Indo-Pacific strategies. So here they would be also focusing on one important aspect is about the Mumbai and Ahmedabad bullet train railway line, where they wanted to speed up and complete the procedures and as soon as possible. This is actually using the Shinkansen technology, and this particular project would be funded by the Japanese. So in terms of the loans is what would be funded. So this is a very important dream project of India as well, the Mumbai Ahmedabad bullet train railway line. And apart from that, they will also be talking about the deal where India is being willing to buy the Japanese, that is Japan's Shin Mavia USM amphibious aircraft, where it has been used for the research and as well as for the rescue operations, which remains on the agenda. So this has been as quite since like 2014 which has been there, but there's no such improvement which has been happening on this particular deal purchase. So this will also be an important kind of an area to what the particular visit would be focusing on. So here this is just an understanding to what they might be talking, but once the visit has been done, you'll get the complete details, then we'll be doing it in detail. So that's all about it. But again, here you have a video which will be playing on the Mumbai and Ahmedabad bullet train.
Passengers will get the thrill of riding under the sea while traveling between Mumbai and Ahmedabad in the first bullet train of the country. The 508 kilometers long Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed rail corridor will have a 21 kilometer long tunnel under the sea, said a senior railway ministry official involved with the public transporters' ambitious bullet train project. While most part of the corridor is proposed to be on the elevated track, there will be a stretch after Thane Creek towards Virar, which will go under the sea as per the detailed project report by JICA. Estimated to cost about Rs 97,636 crore, 81% of the funding for the project will come in form of a loan from Japan. The project cost includes possible cost escalation, interest during construction, and import duties.
So with this, we will be moving on to the next news item. The factory growth slows to 10-month low. So here, as we saw in page 1, there was few important indicators and important sectors and segments which we discussed. So here, it's talking about the same thing. Industrial production would slow down a 10-month low with respect to 4.3% in the month of August. And here, this is because of the drastic deceleration of the manufacturing, mining and consumer durable sectors. So this has been one of the reasons to why the industrial production is actually slowing. And we have the IIP, that's the index of the industrial production, which is also slowed in the month of August from the rate from as what we discussed from 6.61% in the month of July. So this was in the month of July, but now it's been completely slowed down. And manufacturing sector has also been decreased, and the mining sector, which has also been decreased with a small contraction of 0.4%. So this is comparison with the month of July. And the sharpest one, you can say that the consumer durable sectors, which has seen a very sharp decline with respect to 5.2% in the month of August from 14.36% in the previous month. So this is the worst hit one when it comes to the consumer durable sectors. And when it has, this is something where it has to be dealt in properly, because this slowdown which has been taken into possible things which has to be registered. But the need is that now they have to be more cautious about the growth of the potential thing. because now it's a festive season. Since a festive season, they can see some relief, but this will not be supporting them in near future. But here, the only thing which can really give them a long-term relief is a policy support. If the focus on the policy support and not depending on the festive season, the things would be falling in place. This is what is being discussed out here. And here the CPI, that's a consumer price index, is of the inflation is actually stable out here, because there's only slight increase, because this is of the food prices and also the transport and communication prices, which has increased marginally. Since these sectors have increased marginally, the CPI has also been increasing marginally, but still it was been terming to be as a normal stable one. But the pan and the tobacco and intoxicant sectors, which is seeing an acceleration from 5.41% to 5.57%. And clothing and footwear, as we already discussed, it has been slowing with respect to 4.6% to 4.88. So this is what is a present from the earlier 4.88. So here the housing segment, it's also the same thing which has been slowed down. And your inflation, fuel and also the light segment, which has eased marginally. This is from actually from 8.47%. This was right now, but earlier in the month of August was 8.55%. But here let me also tell you all that all these percentage to what we are discussing, it's not important. You don't have to memorize all these percentages, but just to know how the economy has been fluctuating, which sector has been yielding good, which sector is getting deteriorated. If it's getting deteriorated, why is it getting deteriorated? This would be more than sufficient for you all to understand to what is the accommodation. And these are the important. For example, the IIP is something very important. You have to understand to what are the core industries which comes under the IIP, what are the contributions. So this is how you have to go when it comes to your economy. So don't memorize all these things which is not important. And the last news item, Bandhan Bank gets exemption. So here we know that the RBI last month had actually restrained the Bandhan Bank for not opening a new branches. So it said that you are not supposed to open a new branches because they are not following to what the RBI had given as a directions, because they were not been lowering the shareholding of the company where they're supposed to lower it for 40% from the current 82%, but nothing has been taken into the execution, because here the chief executive officer has not met any of the licensing conditions to what it has to be met. So taking this into consideration, the RBI had actually given a kind of a restraint for the Bandhan Bank to open a new branch. But right now the Bandhan Bank has made it clear that it has got exemption from the SEBI, that is a 1 year lock-in period for selling the shares for the by the promoters. So with this 1 year, it has to sell the shares and it has to get back to 40%. So this is one of the 1 year kind of a time period to what is being given by the SEBI. So that's all about it. So this is actually a continuation news to what we are seeing right now. So that's about it. And the question for the day right now, so we started with one particular questions where we are trying to give it in terms of an much objective kind of a question. You can put your answers into the comment section. So as the days goes, we will be increasing more of the questions out. The question for the day is that which among the following aims to promote the fraternity among the Indian citizens? Preamble, fundamental duties and second schedule. So you'll have to choose the right answer which is being given from here. It's 1 only, 1 and 2, 2 and 3 and 1 to 3. So this is about the options to what you have to choose. Choose the correct options and put it into the comment section. So that's all about it. So these were the important news items for 13th of October 2018. Thank you.